Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now, starting from the transmission pattern of single gene disorder, first of all, first disorder we have is autosomal dominant disorder, inheritance. What happens that autosomal dominant inheritance occurs when at least one parent is affected, one parent of the person of the offspring is infected, and it occurs in heterozygous state, means that one allele is mutant, one allele has to be mutant, and the other may or may not be normal. So it can occur in both the sexes, and it can and both the sexes can transmit condition, means that both the female and the male offspring can be affected by this. Now, in some conditions of autosomal dominant disorder, what happens that the parents are not affected. What happens that mutations have occurred in the egg and sperm of the offspring, and in some condition it what happens, reduced penetrance occurs. Reduced penetrance means that there is no phenotypical abnormality, and if it means that phenotypically or physically the person is normal, so because there is a reduced penetrance of the mutation. There is another condition, that variable expressivity. It means that uh, the mutation in the gene has di- is expressed in different ways in different organisms. For example, neurofibromatosis 1 range from brownish spots on the skin to the multiple tumors and skeletal deformities. Means in some persons, neurofibromatosis 1 causes brownish spots on the skin, and in some person causes multiple tumors, and in some persons it causes skeletal deformities. It is called as variable expressivity. Then comes that in many conditions the age at the onset is delayed. Age of the onset is basically delayed, means that the signs and symptoms occur late in the adulthood. Example, Huntington disease. And then comes that there are some autosomal dominant disorders in which 50% there is 50% reduction in the normal gene. For example, if a gene encodes any protein, then there will be 50% reduction in that protein. So what will happen that those involved in regulation of complex metabolic pathways often subject to feedback control membrane receptors, and for example, now there are basically two types of them. uh, the proteins may be regulatory proteins. So if the proteins are regulatory proteins, or like the membrane receptor proteins or the transport proteins, then what will happen that there is an example of LDL receptor gene. If the LDL receptor gene is mutated, then what will happen that the receptor proteins will be produced in less quantity, and LDL will accumulate in the plasma. This will lead to atherosclerosis, arteriosclerosis, etc. Then, if the structural proteins like collagen, etc., is absent, then there will be abnormalities. For example, if the spectrin, which is a protein, is absent, then abnormalities will result in hereditary spherocytosis.